Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Suitable Mission about a week ago in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, "My husband left our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone and refuses to explain why. My husband is 43 and I'm 31. We've been married for 7 years and have a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. My husband left our children alone and he refuses to admit it or tell me where he was. I'm furious, enraged, and my husband keeps telling me I'm making a big deal out of nothing. This just happened this weekend. I am on the board of directors for a local nonprofit organization. I had to attend an event for that organization this past Saturday, and I was gone for most of the day. My husband was supposed to be home with our kids. I texted him a few times and he responded. When I called around midday, he didn't respond, but that's not very unusual. Shortly after that, I got a call from my mom. She said my son had just called her, and when she asked him what he and his sister were doing, he said they were both watching TV. When she asked where their dad was, he said his dad wasn't there. My mom asked him several other questions, and from my son's responses, she believed he was telling the truth, that my husband wasn't there and that there was no adult there at all. She said he didn't seem scared to be alone or worried about where his dad was. He just called her to chat. He has a tablet designed for children with pre-programmed contacts that he can call. It's only a few people, just family members. I left the event immediately and began texting and calling my husband repeatedly. He didn't respond to my first several attempts. It took him about 10 minutes to respond. I was so confused, so worried, really mad, and I asked him where he was. He said he was at home. I told him our son had just told his grandmother that he was home alone with his baby sister watching TV about 15 minutes ago. My husband denied it, and I told him I was too upset to talk and drive. When I got home, I checked on the kids right away, and they were both fine. I asked my husband again, where was he? He said he was home the entire time. He doesn't know what our son was talking about, but must have just been confused since he had gone to the basement to do some laundry. I ran down to the basement. It was the same load of laundry I'd thrown in the dryer the night before. He didn't do any laundry while I was gone. I asked my husband why my son would be confused about whether his dad was home or not. Where in our home could he have gone for how long for our son to think his dad wasn't home? That doesn't make sense with a 5-year-old and a 9-month-old. You wouldn't leave them unattended that long. Why was he nowhere to be found when my mom asked my son to check certain areas of the house? I begged my husband to just admit it, to stop treating me like an idiot, and to stop accusing our son of lying. Just tell me the truth, because being lied to right to my face is incredibly maddening. He insists he was home, but can't come up with any believable story about where he was or what he was doing during that time. The way he answers me when I ask him about this and demand truthful answers is so dismissive. When I tell him, "You left our children alone," he quickly says, "No, I didn't. So anyway." He says I'm overreacting and letting our son's imagination drive me crazy. I am convinced he was gone. We don't have a Ring camera, but at least one of our neighbors does. I'm so upset about this that I'm tempted to ask our neighbor for the Ring footage. I had to go out to my car and scream and cry because I got so upset. Of course, I didn't want my kids to see my reaction. I can't put into words how upset I am about the fact that I know he must have really left them alone, but have no proof and am being treated like I'm just a paranoid nutcase of a woman by him. User Obvious Miscreant said, when my now ex did this, it was drugs. I didn't know about it. He told me months later when I found out that he often left at night and put the kids in the living room together, so if the house burned down, at least they'd be together. My youngest was under a year and the oldest was 5. Don't stop asking questions. User Chair 123 said, get the Ring camera footage. That way you have proof either way. There is nothing wrong with getting some footage. Just tell your neighbor that a package was stolen and you just want to see if someone stole it, or you just wondered what time your husband left that day. You don't have to explain it, just get the info. That is the only way to end this dispute. You will know if he was lying, and if you can prove he is lying to you, maybe he will come clean. Even if not, you know you are not crazy and he can't say you are. I know this is Reddit. Everyone will have their theories, but this is the only way to find the truth. User Baddie but Daddy said it's either drugs or an affair. Also, the fact that your 5-year-old was calm and nonchalant about the situation makes me believe that he does this frequently enough that the kids are used to it. To this, OP said, "My mom said she and my son chatted for at least 5 minutes before she asked him where his dad was, and when she asked that, she still didn't think anything was wrong. She was just trying to make conversation. He gave no indication that anything was wrong, and when she started asking him more questions regarding his dad's whereabouts, he didn't seem fazed." Update 2. Last weekend, my husband left our 5-year-old and 9-month-old home alone while I was gone and then refused to admit it or provide a plausible explanation. Since then, we have had many arguments about it. I've been living in a constant state of anger and frustration. I didn't want to fight about it anymore, but I couldn't help it, and I kept bringing it up again and again. I couldn't lay low and pretend to get over it while I waited for him to do it again and catch him in whatever was going on. I also knew that demanding he tell me the truth wasn't going to get me anywhere since he had been refusing to talk and deflecting for days. All it was doing was making me enraged and feel like I was about to have a brain aneurysm. I told him to hand me his phone so I could check his location at the time. He refused. He said he wouldn't do it and that it was a violation of his privacy, he won't be treated that way, and refuses to give in to my delusions. Do you think I enjoy being in a situation where I have to beg my husband to show me his phone so I can see where he was? I hate it. I don't want to live that way. I told him it's simple. If he was really at home the entire time, just prove it. Why wouldn't he want to clear this whole thing up? I got so mad that he wouldn't turn over his phone that I told him I was going to the neighbors to get their doorbell footage. At first, he was like, "Fine, go do it." He didn't think I actually would. He knows I don't like to air drama to others, so he probably figured I'd just swallow all of this crap he's been giving me. Luckily, I was totally driven by anger at this point, so nothing was going to stop me from going to the neighbors. When I actually started to go out the door, he tried to stop me and followed me out the door. I felt pure anger rushing through my veins, nothing else. The neighbor, who I've probably said less than 10 words to in the entire time we've lived here, told me he'd send me the footage. I went home, told my husband that the neighbor didn't have the footage from that day anymore, and said I just needed to go to the store and cool off. So I put the kids in the car and parked somewhere while I waited for the neighbor to send me the footage. I have the neighbor's number now too, and he told me if I need any more footage, he will be happy to give it to me. The video shows a blue car that I don't recognize pull up and park in our driveway. A blonde woman gets out of the car and goes toward my house. She walks on the outside of our garage toward the gate leading to our backyard. The gate is too far back and out of the way to be seen on the doorbell footage. She and her car were there for 23 minutes. Imagine that. The car leaves right around the time that my husband called me to say he was home and had been home the entire time, as I was rushing home in a panic and calling him repeatedly. There are two possibilities as to where they went. She either came in through the side door of the house, which does provide direct access to the basement, or what I think is more likely is that they were in the backmost area of our yard, which is a gated pool area. Immediately behind our house is a grass lawn. Then you step down a few steps, we have a patio, and then there is a fully gated area where the pool is located. It's not what you might picture when you think of a gated pool. It's a full 6-foot wooden fence all the way around, plus even taller landscaping for added privacy. You can't see into that area at all unless you're inside. I think it's more likely they were back there because my son said his dad's keys were gone and we keep that gate locked with a key. The pool is closed for winter, but there is one small building back there and there is a covered patio with furniture. I'm convinced that's where they were. So technically he was home, but in an area totally removed from the house and where he couldn't see or hear the kids if something happened. I asked him how he could explain this. What were they doing? He wasn't contrite. He showed no remorse. He was just like, "Yeah, she was here, but I obviously never left." Who is she? How long has this been going on? And if he's going to be such a disgusting, despicable excuse for a man, then why couldn't he at least have found any other time and any other lie or excuse other than when he was home alone with our kids? I told him I know this has happened before, and I demanded to know how many times he's done this when he's been home alone with the kids. He swears this is the only time, but he still doesn't have the courage to confess to what they were doing. I don't believe him that this was the only time, for your information. I still have so many questions, and I still feel like my heart is beating 200 times a minute. My blood pressure is through the roof. I've cried a lot, sobbed, begged for somebody to help me, yelled, screamed, and ordered a bunch of books about divorce and custody. And you know what? The next day after our multiple explosive fights, him putting his hands on me and me seeing the evidence, he acted like everything was totally normal and like none of that stuff ever happened. I woke up still seething, exhausted, broken, and he's acting like everything is totally normal. He said he was ordering breakfast to be delivered from our favorite breakfast place. He asked if I wanted to go to the store together later and try this new recipe for chili tonight. What? Why would I want to do any of these things with you now? There was absolutely no acknowledgement of anything he's done or what's transpired between us in the past few days. He deserved an Oscar for how well he was able to act like none of that happened. Completely comfortable and unfazed. I know that it's a waste of my energy, but I just desperately want him to admit the full truth of what he did that day and any other day with this woman. I want to hear it from him. It won't change whatever he's done, but he could at least have the respect and decency to be honest now that he's been caught. That's a ridiculous thought though, right? How foolish of me to expect this man to show decency and honesty now. If he was a decent and honest man, then he wouldn't have had a strange woman over to our house and been out of sight from our kids for 23 minutes. His continued denial and refusal to admit anything other than the bare minimum, his attitude like I'm somehow being controlling or infringing on his rights by asking for information, that's almost more hurtful than him cheating on me. User Trick Delivery said, "Honey, you need to take the kids and leave as soon as possible. It is the most dangerous time for you right now, and he has already put his hands on you. Go to your parents and stay safe. Get your divorce and move on. Call the domestic abuse hotline if you need more help, but get out." To this user, Ingrown Toenail Cheese said, "He's having an affair with his mistress in the backyard shed. Both of these people are garbage. Divorce him." User Shy B said, "OP, he has not been honest and won't be honest. Even if he is, what would that give you? Could you even believe it? OP, you know what he was doing. You don't need him to spell it out for you. Put yourself and your children first." To this, OP said, "At the end of the day, his admitting what he's done wouldn't really change anything. It certainly won't change what he's done. It won't make it better, and I probably still wouldn't believe I was getting the full truth. Yet, I can't stop seething over the fact that he's refusing to give me any information." User Financially Secure said, "You have to be okay with knowing what you know. The details will not serve you unless you have a prenup. It's been 18 years and my ex still has not admitted he was cheating even though I have shown him proof. These men don't care. Please don't teach your kids that it's okay to put up with what he did. Leave him now. He will make your life miserable for another couple of years, but then things will be a lot better than they ever will be if you stay with him." The second story was made in the Surviving Infidelity subreddit by a user named SyncOld. The post is titled, "I found them in our bed. Last week I was completely and utterly happy. Head over heels in love with my fiance. We've been together for years. We found out in May that she was pregnant. Life didn't feel like it could get any better. I'm an essential worker and, unfortunately, still have to travel from time to time for my job. I have been trying to cut down on plane travel and will drive if able. Last week, I was scheduled to be gone all week, but ended up being able to leave several days ahead of time because I wanted to surprise my fiance. It was an 8-hour drive, but it ended up taking close to 14 hours because of traffic and poor timing on my part. I got home around 10:30 p.m. and found her and a coworker in our bed together having sex. She's an assistant producer at a local news station and he's one of the anchors. She immediately tried to defuse the situation and said it's not what I think it is and not to jump to conclusions. He jumped up, put his clothes on, and left. I was so angry that I was seeing stars. She tried to talk to me about it, but I didn't want to hear it. I left, called a buddy, and have been staying with him for the past 6 days. I spoke to her on the phone yesterday, and she told me it was a one-time thing and that she feels like the passion has been missing in our relationship, which I don't agree with at all. I think she was trying to justify the cheating and gaslight me. I'm so angry and she won't stop harassing me. I don't know what to do. We're going to be parents and I don't want anything to do with her, but I'm stuck with her for the next 18 years. She hasn't even apologized, she just keeps trying to justify her actions. Update. So sorry for taking so long to update. This week has been hellish. I met with my friend's family law attorney early last week. He contacted her and threatened to go public about their affair, so she was more forthcoming with information. She told him they had been sleeping together for over a year. She's 85% sure the baby is mine because they never have unprotected sex, but doesn't want to have a DNA test until the baby is born. I haven't fully moved out yet. I have just moved a lot of my clothes into my buddy's place. The lawyer thinks I should sell the house and not let her buy me out because he doesn't think she has the funds and would try to BS me. Also, sorry if I didn't answer you. I got a ton of messages here and in messages. I tried to answer as much as I could. If you have any other questions, I'll be on for a bit. Final update. I'm still blown away by the number of people checking up on me both in this thread and via messages. I really appreciate the support and love during this trying time. On to what you're here for. We did multiple DNA tests and the baby is mine. He was born a few weeks ago and is by far the greatest thing to happen to me. He makes all this mess worth it. His mother and I are not together. I strictly speak to her about the baby and that is all. The house is sold. Closing is on March 1st, but we do not need to be there. I'm still living with my buddy, hoping to buy a new home in the next few months for my son and me. I did not go public with the affair out of respect for our son. Her employers know about it and she was terminated. He is still working there. I'm not sure what their relationship consists of and I don't care. I'm guessing he bolted. User Taco said, the fact that she is cheating is low, but she is cheating and pregnant? That's just disgusting. To this, OP said, I couldn't have said it better myself. Who knows what she just exposed the baby and me to? User Perkman66 said, think about it. She notified you in May and this is the end of July. You didn't catch them the first time. There's no doubt about it. What type of person would have sex with another man in the bed where she conceived a child? You have to look at it as if you dodged a bullet. If the baby is yours, then okay, but I would be surprised if it is. A lawyer should also demand a DNA test. If this other guy is married, let the media and his spouse know. To this, OP said, I don't think he's married or in a relationship based on social media. He looks like a bit of a player, following all the local models and NFL cheerleaders and commenting on their pictures, with some following him back. Don't worry, a DNA test will be done. 5 years later, OP gave us an update. I made this throwaway account over 4 years ago when I had just found out my ex-fiancée cheated on me with her coworker. You can read my original post and update here. I actually completely forgot I made this account until I was going through my email to delete stuff yesterday. I figured I'd log back in and give all the people in situations similar to and worse than mine some hope. I was incredibly broken when this happened and tried to put all my feelings aside when our son was born. I'm ashamed to share that my feelings eventually caught up with me and my ex and I went at it on multiple occasions. Shortly after, I realized I let her break me and started going to therapy regularly. I went a couple of times before that and didn't think it helped, but once I was consistent, it was a game changer. As a man, I was taught to suck it up and move on, but crying and talking about issues does help. I mean, honestly talking about them, not in a stoic way like I had been doing. My ex and I are actually on friendly terms. She is also in therapy. I am proud to say we co-parent really well. We do family activities together like opening gifts on Christmas or spending the day with him on his birthday. He's 4. How do I have a 4-year-old? He's so smart, funny, and loves us both so much. We do 50-50 custody. It works for us. She's a great mom. I won't take that away from her. I'm sure this isn't the update some of you wanted to hear, but it's what works best for our son. I don't hate her anymore and she doesn't hate me anymore. We're both in a really good place. No, I don't ever want to be with her again. She has apologized to me for her affair. We had a really open and honest conversation with each other like 2 years ago, and it really helped me heal. I got to air out all my feelings, and so did she. The other man moved to a new news station like 2.5 to 3 years ago in a different state. They don't speak anymore. She's dating, but nothing serious. She does have a new job working in another local news station. She started working when our son was a year old. I'm doing really well, enjoying watching our son grow up. I've been dating someone for the past 2 years. She's the best human I've ever met. She loves my son as her own. She really worked with me to mend my trust issues. Ironically, we met at work. Even my ex likes her and has no problem with her being around our son. Don't worry, I waited a full year to introduce her to our son. Just wanted you all to know things do get better, and although things didn't work out the way I had initially planned, I'm still incredibly happy and our son is thriving. User Burn Away said, this is a really hopeful and happy update. Thank you for showing how there can be daylight at the end of the tunnel. Congratulations and keep moving forward. To this, OP said, thank you and no problem. I wrote this post because I remember feeling like things would never get better 4 years ago, and there is always daylight at the end of the tunnel. Take things one day at a time. User Connect Initiative said, I'm more so wondering, did he ever get punished? Like, if you weren't a more level-headed person, you could have caused a **** T-storm for that news station. The fact that only she got fired is mind-boggling to me. I would have expected him to be axed immediately for opening them up to a PR nightmare. Also, you said she apologized. Did she ever explain her reasoning behind the affair? You don't have to answer if you don't want to, but I like hearing the excuses they give. It's almost comical after so many years of hearing them repeatedly. To this, OP said, I don't honestly know. I'm sure there was some sort of action taken. I also think that might be why he left the news station and moved to a different state. People who work in the news industry typically have contracts that are 2 to 3 years long, so that adds up. I never outright asked my ex, and she never said anything to me. I think it was easier to fire her because she was coming to the end of her 2-year contract with her station, and she made less money than he did. Viewers wouldn't know she was missing because she's not an on-air talent, so there would be fewer questions than if he had been fired. Usually, when someone leaves the station, they have a little party and wish them well. They did not do this with that guy. He was there one day and gone the next. We found out on social media that he had moved to another station. All his coworkers unfollowed him, so something tells me he was on thin ice at the station. I don't want to get fully into it, but one of her major issues was that I worked too much. And she's right, I was working a lot before she got pregnant, and I worked even more when I found out she was pregnant. We had planned to start trying for children after we got married, but she got pregnant before that, and our wedding was canceled because of COVID. Once I checked my ego, I could see how she felt lonely and that I wasn't there for her. It's not a reason to cheat, but the resentment built up. This third and final story was made in the AITA subreddit by a user named Much Comment about 3 weeks ago. The post is titled AITA for denying my ex his son after he abandoned us, and I took the choice alone to give him up for adoption. I had a baby boy when I was 16. Yes, I know how that sounds. No, we weren't careful. Judge me all you want on that front. I've dealt with that for years. Mike was my boyfriend then, and when I found out about my pregnancy, he did a disappearing act with help from his family. Something about being a future college star. My parents were always blunt. What happened next was my choice. After a lot of thinking and deciding that abortion just wasn't for me, I chose to give up the baby for adoption. My parents knew a super sweet couple that were looking to adopt. We met, and I just knew they were the right people. This turned what started as a teen mistake into an almost surrogacy situation. I started homeschooling to finish my education and to have some rest. The adoptive parents were with me for everything and even paid for most of the medical costs. The adoptive mother was a teacher, so she helped me with my schoolwork and prepared me for college. They were present for the birth, and I refused to hold the baby. Instead, his actual mother did, and it felt just right. I've stayed in the baby's life in a distant position as a special aunt. Well, he's no longer a baby and he knows who I am, but his mom is the same woman who raised him, and I continue to be his special aunt. The only change is now he knows who to call if he needs a kidney. His sense of humor is like mine. Go figure. We talk maybe a once in a blue moon, which in all honesty is for the best. He's happy, and I don't regret giving him up to have a happy life. For my part, I married 6 years ago. My husband Aaron was divorced on good terms with Bella. They have 2 children together, a boy who is 16 and a girl who is 19. Aaron made it clear since we began dating that his kids' approval was important and that Bella was part of his life forever, not as a spouse but as a friend and mother to his children. I also told Bella and him about my teen pregnancy. To begin with the kids, my stepdaughter and I get along well. She's obviously closer to her mother, but she still does girls' days with me every so often. It's more like friends though. My stepson is incredibly close to me. He calls me his other mom and always asks me to be present for important events. We bonded when his childhood dog passed away, as my cat died around the same time. Bella and I were best friends. I know people have complicated relationships with their partner's exes, but we always show respect to each other. I never tried to take her place. I know Aaron and she shared something special long before I was in the picture. That's their history, and I am a stepmom, not a mom. Her place in the kids' lives is not up for competition. The reason for this background is that the whole mess with Mike started when I took my stepson to a medical appointment. It wasn't serious, though he did have to use anesthesia. Aaron and Bella both couldn't get the day off. They tried, but their jobs are on call and they cannot easily take time off. so I went on my own to support my stepson. I didn't recognize Mike as one of the doctors. His real name, both first and last, is incredibly common, and it had been years since we last saw each other. Not to mention my priority was being my stepson's support. Everything else was secondary. After my stepson was done, he was a bit out of it as expected. I was setting him up in the car and making sure he was comfortable when Mike came over. He told me he had been thinking about me and our son for so long and that he was glad our boy was okay. It really took me a few minutes for my brain to click on what was going on, and he kept rambling about apologies and how he wasn't ready to be a father, blah blah blah. Eventually, I just sighed and loudly said, "This is not the baby I was pregnant with. I gave him up for adoption after I gave birth. I am a stepmother." My loopy stepson chimed in with, "Other mom." I had to hold back a smirk, to be honest. Mike was stunned by that, and it gave me time to catch him up on the important details. I gave up the baby, and he knows what happened and why I gave him up. I married a man with 2 children. I am happy and don't want him in my life. And no, I won't give him contact information for the adoptive family. He is 16 years too late. That was the end of it, and I got into my car to get my stepson home to rest. Since then, Mike has found me on social media and has been painting this sob story about me denying him a chance to be a father, how I was a poor mother who threw away her child to raise someone else's children. I'm basically the she-devil, apparently. Most of our former classmates who saw the post reminded him that he left me. Some of his high school friends even pointed out that he laughed about leaving me pregnant. I didn't know that part. A few of his relatives have reached out to bash me about taking away Mike's chance to be a father and that it made me a poor Christian. I'm not. I'm Jewish to begin with. A few friends did tell me it was a B*tich move to give the baby up without telling Mike. I don't personally think I was in the wrong, but in case I am, I decided to leave the judgment to the internet masses. So, Reddit, am I the asshole? To clear something up, the adoptive parents and biological child have a phone number to contact Mike's parents if they want. I have no say if they do or not. I just won't give Mike any information on them. 𝓓 𝓒𝓚𝓔𝓓 said, "When he abandoned you and his son, he made the choice not to be a part of his or your life, and you don't need to tell him anything else. The decision of adoption was yours and you did what you thought was right, and that's normal. You didn't deny him anything, he did it himself, not the asshole." 𝓓 said, "These people are absolutely psycho. Your biological child might decide for himself to try and find his biological dad one day, but it's your job to defend his privacy until then. Make sure his decision is informed." To this, OP said, "I told him everything when his parents decided it was time to tell him who I really was. I didn't make Mike into a villain, I just said he left after I told him I was pregnant and never reached out. He's been clear that while I am his biological mother and Mike is his biological father, he doesn't see either of us as parents. I am his aunt and Mike is a stranger." 𝓓 said, "Isn't it funny how people who make poor decisions love to rewrite history to cast themselves as the hero or the victim? I am actually pretty impressed that your classmates came to your defense and called him out on his nonsense. One thing, knowing nothing about how this works, I assume you were able to get Mike's parental rights terminated since he left. If not, I wonder if it makes sense to give the adoptive family a heads up that he's coming out of the woodwork. But no, you are not just not the asshole. You sound like a great person with a great life, and your husband and stepfamily obviously know this too. And about Mike, man, talk about dodging a bullet, not the asshole." To this, OP said, "This was a tough situation because he wasn't around, and no one in his family willingly gave a DNA sample to establish parenthood. The judge who handled the adoption could have demanded it, but she decided for the good of the baby and myself to just terminate both of our rights. Then the baby was adopted. I was basically deemed unfit and the father could not be contacted. The court really tried hard to reach him. Update. This is probably the one and only update I'll be doing because, to be honest, I have other things to do, and I have my main Reddit account for lurking. I'm going to start with the important matter. A lot of people were worried about my biological child and what he wanted when it came to Mike. Well, I got his permission to post this. He spoke to Mike once a few days after I told him where he could find Mike. I won't share all the details, only the final decision. There won't be any more contact between them. The child doesn't want a second dad, and Mike wasn't willing to be in his life unless he had the position of dad, so he's going no contact with Mike. There was more to it, but it's very personal, and I feel it's not my place to share it. The child and I will continue to have a relationship as aunt and nephew, and he knows that whatever he needs medically, I'll always be first in line to give blood, a kidney, etc. For those wondering why Mike is so eager to contact the child, I found out a few details via his friends. Mike can have more kids, he just hasn't had a stable relationship in years. I can believe that since I finally had enough and decided to accept going for coffee with him to get some things squared away. My husband came, of course, but he sat at another table to let me deal with it as I asked him to. The conversation was a mess, to be honest. Mike brought me flowers and chocolate-covered strawberries, my old favorites. He treated it all like some date. I nipped that in the bud immediately. I introduced my husband and told him we were very much in love and happy, so I don't appreciate any attempts at unwanted romance. Once we sat down, he started by telling me what I already knew about his failed relationships. That he felt no woman could meet his standards for a wife and mother to his children since he already saw me as that. He claims he feels guilty for choosing college over me and our baby. He was well aware of the court dates regarding custody and that I was trying to put the baby up for adoption. When he saw me taking care of my stepson, he thought I had chickened out of giving the baby away. Seeing me being all caring toward our baby boy made him think how great it would be if the three of us could be a family and maybe have a bigger family down the road. He had the gall to ask me if I would consider divorcing my husband and trying to fight for custody of our son. I have to admit, I laughed in his face. I probably was overly cruel, but I had years of stress, heartache, and judgmental encounters to drop on him. I told him all I saw in him was a coward who, instead of staying to make adult decisions, decided to run with the help of mommy and daddy. Any love I had for him died the day I had to push out a full human being. Instead of knowing I had support from him, there was a big empty spot where the dad was supposed to be. I almost ruined my life and had to throw away prom, senior pictures, and even graduation because I was far too pregnant to party, appear in the yearbook, or walk onto the stage to get my diploma. He got to party and enjoy life while I had to fight tooth and nail for an inch of respect, yet we both had unprotected sex. The only difference is that his anatomy wasn't big enough to pop a baby out or satisfy a woman to begin with. After I calmed down, I simply told him that I had a happy life with a man who loves me, great stepkids who are the greatest gift, a best friend who lets me be a stepmom to her children, and a nephew whom I adore. Despite our history as biological mother and child, he still loves me as his special aunt rather than hates me. My family is perfect because he's not part of it, and I have no intentions of living in his fantasy, and that I can't wait to get pregnant with my husband's child to add to that perfection. I also told him to leave our biological child alone. He has made his choice, and it is up to him if he ever reaches out to Mike. I also let him know I would be making a formal complaint to his hospital for his harassment. Good thing my husband took screenshots because by the time we got home, Mike had deleted all the posts. A lot of his former friends reposted screenshots making fun of him. The silver lining in all of this is that I have reconnected with my high school classmates, and to be honest, they are great people. It seems Mike is among the handful who stayed in his school hype mindset. It's been about 3 days with no signs of Mike. My husband did get the biggest ego boost when he overheard me going off on Mike and has been insufferable in a good way. So there's mostly good news. Hopefully one of these days we'll get even more good news since we are actually excited about the idea of having a baby together. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.